Hello Eternal Life fans, it's Rowan from the Eternal Life Fan Club, and today's topic is Rhonda Patrick. Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this girl, okay, she knows her stuff about nutrition. You could call her the angel of nutrition, and she's here to help us live forever. She's an anti-aging warrior, okay? She doesn't want to get old. She's researching this stuff on how to cure aging. She even interviewed Aubrey Dr. Aubrey DeGray. I'll link that interview in the description if you want. But in today's video, I'm going to give a brief rundown of maybe the top 4 things that she talks about. This is just my opinion. I like these 4 things a lot, but you know, I can't begin to cover everything she talks about. She's just a wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to go into 4 things, and I'll probably make other videos in the future discussing more things she talks about. But she does a lot of interviews. She's done a lot of interviews with Joe Rogan, and just really great information. Let's get into it. Number 1. Alright, so the first thing she talks a lot about is phospholipid DHA. We've all heard about DHA, this very healthy fat you can find in fish. A lot of seafood has DHA. But she turned me on specifically to the idea of the phospholipid form of DHA, which enters the brain 10 times better than normal DHA. So in fish, you might find 1 to 3% of the DHA in fish would be in the phospholipid form. But Dr. Rhonda Patrick turned me on to the idea of eating salmon eggs. Okay, this is salmon roe right here. And what this has 40% of its DHA in the form of phospholipid. So way more of this DHA is actually getting into the brain, where it can help heal the brain, repair the brain of brain damage and anti-aging effects of this DHA. Now, here's the thing about it. Salmon eggs also has a lot of astaxanthin, which is this super powerful antioxidant. She says this antioxidant turns on the FOXO anti-aging gene. So this is really good for just longevity in general. I'm a fan of it. Obviously, you can tell she's pretty smart because she's not a vegan. Okay, so that's one thing we can take note of right away. She obviously understands the benefits and the importance of animal fats for brain health. It's so important, it's so healing for the brain that we see in the cases of traumatic brain injury. If someone has traumatic brain injury, if they give them enough fish oils and these special brain fats, the DHA, it can dramatically improve their chances of recovery. It definitely prevents the brain damage. It helps repair the brain and protect the brain. So if you're one of these people doing sports, you know, things where you might get a concussion or something, definitely get some salmon roe into your diet. It'll protect your brain. I had a concussion when I was a kid, and they found now, the science is showing that if you have a concussion, even one concussion, it increases your chances of getting Alzheimer's or dementia by 40%. You have 40% increased chance of getting Alzheimer's just by getting one concussion. So take that to heart, and you know, if you've ever had a concussion or any kind of brain injury, I've always felt that I had maybe a slight brain damage. You want to be doing stuff like this to heal your brain. It can be healed. Okay, the brain can heal. And this is how we're going to do it. This is part of the strategy to heal the brain. So before I move on to number 2, I wanted to discuss another option to get the phospholipid form of DHA, which is krill oil. Krill oil has been gaining in a lot of popularity. I've done the calculations here. Krill oil is very expensive. Salmon roe can get pretty pricey too, but I've done the calculations, and pound for pound, you get much more phospholipid DHA from ordering fresh salmon roe than you would bottles of krill oil. You know, this could be why Dr. Rhonda Patrick herself, she used to take krill oil. I don't know if she still takes krill oil, but now she definitely eats a lot of salmon roe. You can see that on her Instagram. She's posting about it all the time. Okay, so This is, I just got mine. It's my first batch, and so I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm anxious to try it. I'll put it in an avocado, you know, like she does, and maybe I'll make a video later on how that turns out. Or I'll just show you what it looks like there. Look at that. Look at that. All that astaxanthin, all those antioxidants and that healthy fat. My brain is in for a treat. Alright, number 2. Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks a lot about this idea of a hormetic stressor. Okay? It's hormesis. And usually we hear that stress is bad for you. But the idea of this is that toxins, okay, and stressors on the body, such as exercise, such as heat stress, such as cold stress, there's different ways of getting these benefits. But when you stress the body, or when you expose the body to small amounts of toxins, in many cases plant toxins, okay? Plant hormetic compounds is what Rhonda Patrick talks about. When you expose your body to these toxins, it actually creates a beneficial effect in the body, because the body's having to come back stronger and repair itself from any kind of damage, and it turns on, it activates a lot of genes, okay, like genetic switches. Like it can activate longevity genes and all sorts of things like that. So stress isn't always a bad thing.
We were designed to, have stress. And what I mean by designed was we have genetic switches which are supposed to be turned on. These genetic switches that are activated by stress are supposed to be turned on.
You've probably heard of the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it's very similar to that principle. What's interesting about this is that I've researched a lot of centenarians, and a common theme I find with a lot of centenarians is that these people aren't always the happiest people. Centenarians can oftentimes be very stressed out type of people, okay, very wired and very stressed, and they work a lot, and they're workaholics, and so they're actually exposed to a lot of stress. Maybe that's helping them live longer. I know we hear stress is bad for you, but maybe there's another side to this. And also, maybe the fear of death is a hormetic stressor. Okay, I'm certainly afraid of death, and maybe that's going to benefit me by kind of stressing my body out. I don't know. I'm just theorizing here. Alright, so, you want to get the benefits of hormesis, okay? You want a hormetic stressor. What are you going to do? Sauna. There's one thing. It's a heat stressor. Get into the sauna. Or go into a hot water springs, okay? You want to be exposed to the heat for a few hours. Sauna, they're actually finding a lot of anti-Alzheimer's effects. So there's studies now showing you're going to decrease your chances of getting Alzheimer's just by going in the sauna. But how about you want a cold water stressor? Well, just take a plunge into an icy cold lake, okay? That's going to have some benefits. So it's very detoxifying, okay? Exercise. Take your pick. It's a stressor. You're stressing out the body. You're going to build back stronger. Of course, like I said, don't get hit in the head. Don't be an MMA fighter and just taking hits to the head. That's going to increase your chances of getting Alzheimer's. Sulforaphane is from broccoli sprouts. Dr. Rhonda popularized sulforaphane. She was like the big person pushing this thing on YouTube. And you basically, it's very cheap, okay, because you're just making broccoli sprouts. You're just taking broccoli seeds and sprouting them. You could do it at home. I haven't gotten into it yet, so I'm going to save the details for this one for a different video once I actually try it, okay? But from what I hear, Dr. Rhonda says that it increases neurogenesis. So I'm after healing my brain, so I'm going to do anything that can heal my brain. Neurogenesis is when you can regrow new brain cells. It's also very anti-inflammatory, and it does supposedly help prevent cancer. Okay? It kills cancer cells. And then, interestingly, I watched an interview where Dr. Rhonda Patrick was saying even mycotoxins. She was theorizing that mycotoxins, those molds that grow on the molds that everyone's so scared about. She says that maybe even these mycotoxins have a hormetic effect, okay? So they can actually have potential benefits. This is her theory.
So it's kind of like interesting to think about adding a little bit of something that's toxic to, get a better response.
That's fascinating. You were talking about that last time we were here about mycotoxins, that in fact mycotoxins in a small dose might induce that sort of a response.
Yeah, I mean, I was hand waving. I haven't read anything,
You're allowed to do
I
that
was hand waving. I'm like, well, actually, maybe it makes sense that in a small dose, I mean, obviously you don't want something that's like very toxic and going to kill your brain cells or anything like that. But things in small doses, and I was assuming that maybe mycotoxins could possibly have a little slight hormetic effect. Like I said, that was just me theorizing.
So maybe I'm not so stupid for eating some peanut butter, because we've all been told that peanuts are very high in these mycotoxic molds and aflatoxin. So maybe the aflatoxin in the peanuts is actually helping me, by giving me a hormetic effect. And they do measure the amount of these molds that are in peanut butter. They have to regulate it. So I'm not like getting a super, super high exposure to these aflatoxins and mycotoxins. I might be getting just enough exposure to these mycotoxins that's giving me a beneficial hormetic effect. So that was pretty cool. I've never heard anyone mention potential benefits of mycotoxins. That's awesome. I had a thought. Okay, this is all very similar to like X-Men. Okay, you think of X-Men, they're so powerful because they've been in some cases they turn into a superhuman X-Men because they've been exposed to some toxin, like some radioactive toxin, and their body now is having to like repair the damage, and it comes back stronger. It's the very similar principle to hormesis. So it's like we can become modern day X-Men if we expose ourselves to the right toxins, the right stressors, in the right dosages. Obviously, if you overdo it, you can kill yourself, right? Okay, so be careful.
And Beast, never forget. Mutant and proud.
All right, so we're on number 3. And for number 3, I broke it up into 3 categories because this is all very related. Dr. Rhonda Patrick's diet, if you go to her Instagram, you can see that it's generally very low carb. Dr. Rhonda Patrick is not ketogenic because she does recognize the importance of some healthy carbs. Okay, like she'll eat some berries, she'll eat some grapefruit, she'll eat some fruits that are, she tries to pick the lower sugar fruits. But she understands that carbs, if it makes too much of the diet, that's going to age you quickly. That's going to cause glycation. She talks about this stuff. She understands the importance of low carb. Not completely no carb, but just low carb. She'll occasionally eat some oats and things like that, but she always chooses gluten-free. She doesn't eat wheat, okay? She understands that wheat damages the colon, it damages the brain, everything like that. And another thing is, why does she eat some carbs? Well, for prebiotics. A lot of carbs, they have resistant starches that feed the bacteria in her colon. Okay, this is what a prebiotic is. She'll put a banana in her smoothie. She's getting some prebiotics. The food she eats is all filled with prebiotics, okay? There's like onions. Even an onion has prebiotics. Prebiotics are loaded in green leafy vegetables. She tries to get a lot of fiber in her diet.
Many types of fiber are fermentable by the microorganisms that make up the gut microbiome. These fermentable fiber types are often called prebiotics because they feed the tiny little beneficial bacteria that reside in our gut. The best way to increase the microbial diversity in the gut is by eating a wide variety of fermentable fiber types. This can be accomplished by eating a diverse array of vegetables and fruits because they contain various different prebiotics that feed different types of microbial species.
Now you see with these really extreme ketogenic diets, people can just not eat any fiber, not eating vegetables, not eating anything that's remotely carbohydrate-y, and so they might be starving their bacteria, okay? So the colon is like this garden of all these bacteria, and you want to feed them. So this is why I don't recommend a completely no-carb diet, because if you go on a zero-carb diet, your bacteria could literally starve. That's not good, because the bacteria in our colon directly affects the brain, okay? The brain-gut connection. Now, Dr. Rhonda understands this whole thing, and that's why she's not, she understands the connection between the brain and the gut. Like she talks about in her interviews that the gut bacteria can affect people's depression, because the gut bacteria are creating neurotransmitters. And so if you're low in these neurotransmitters, if you're low in the gut bacteria, if you take in antibiotics, you might have very low levels of neurotransmitters, and so you might be depressed or anxious or any kind of thing like that. It's very all related. So what's this going to do? Going low carb, gluten free, making sure you're getting prebiotics and probiotics, it's going to help your brain health and your gut health, because they're directly related, okay? So there's that. But she's smart here. You can tell, like gluten-free, like that's super important, right? Yes, it is. All right, now Dr. Rhonda is a huge proponent of healthy fats. She's not restricting her fat intake, okay? She doesn't buy into this whole low-fat thing. And I'm going to include this healthy fats with low carb. It's directly related, okay? So she's low carb, she's eating higher amounts of fat. Because if you start to restrict your fat, guess what you're going to eat more of? Automatically, you eat more carbs. So she's avoiding all that. She's eating tons of fat. You can see this on her Instagram. She's eating lots of avocados, okay? She's eating olive oil. She's eating healthy animal fats, such as the fish eggs, such as salmon, such as butter and stuff like that, and eggs. Okay, so she's not against fat. That's very important. That shows that she's on the right track. All right, so she's on the right track because if you're eating most of your calories from healthy fats, guess what your brain is going to be running on? Ketones. Okay? Ketones. Ketones is how you're gonna have better your brain's gonna age better. It's because when your brain is running on glucose and all these carbs, your brain ages faster. And ketones are a preferred source of fuel for the brain. It's a nootropic. Okay? When your brain is running on fat, when you're in a fat metabolism, so much better for the brain. Okay, you can focus better and everything. So I imagine there's more ketones in Rhonda Patrick's blood than your average person because of the high amount of fat that she's eating. So that's awesome. And she'll be creating less glycation in her blood, okay, advanced glycogen end products, which is this stuff that ages you, and that's when you eat too much carbs. So this is a good anti-aging strategy, is to be getting most of your calories from fats, okay? All right. We're on the last one, number 4. If you watch Dr. Rhonda's interviews, she talks about time-restricted feeding. This is another way of saying intermittent fasting. So some of the benefits she mentions is that it helps the body to heal because your body has more time, more rest from eating means your body can put more energy into healing, damage from, damage in the brain and everything. Like the body will heal faster when you restrict the eating window. She restricts her eating window to about 10 or 12 hours. Okay, so that means she's only eating within a 10 through 12 hour time span. Whereas most people can eat in a time span of like 15 or 16 hours in a day. They're eating that entire time. So the shorter you can get that window, the more benefits you're going to get from time restricted feeding. Some people who are really serious about it, they'll restrict their feeding window to just like 4 hours or even 1 hour. Some people do 1 meal a day. I'd recommend, it's hard to get all your food in one meal, so I'd recommend maybe 2 meals. So eat 1 meal, 4 hours later, eat another meal, That's 2 meals, and that gives you an eating window of like maybe 4, 5, 6 hours. That to me I think is ideal. But it's basically the same principle of fasting, and we know caloric restriction helps with longevity. And if the shorter of a eating window you have, you're probably going to be eating less calories overall, which can have anti-aging benefits, which gets to our next point. She says it does have anti-aging benefits when you do time-restricted feeding.
Right.
It's like this a very complicated but I think important mechanism and system for people to understand. And time-restricted eating, like I have really implemented that because I think that's something that also will affect the aging process.
She also mentions that it reduces your chances of getting cancer. Okay, as we get older, we're having more and more cancer cells, and this can help prevent that. I guess because it causes it, your body starts like eating its own cancer cells, right? When you're not feeding it all the time, your body will start to break down its own cells, its own cancer cells and everything. And then lastly, it fights inflammation. And there are studies showing that time-restricted feeding is especially good for preventing dementia, Alzheimer's, and probably because of its anti-inflammatory effects. And we know that a lot of these brain diseases have to do with extreme inflammation in the brain. So practicing time-restricted feeding is just going to increase your health by a lot. So Rhonda Patrick's recommending it, highly recommended. She knows what she's talking about.
But this like time-restricted eating it's very important for health and metabolism. It's also something I've been obsessed with since like probably early summer. I've been doing it like just, really fanatically making sure that I'm eating within like a no more than 12-hour period. I try to do like 10 hours. So like when you wake up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee or, you eat even a cup of black coffee. The first thing you put into your system that's not water starts all these metabolic enzymes, starts them in your liver, your gut, starts these enzymes. And those enzymes are on a clock. And once they're activated, they're on this like 12-hour clock where it's like, okay, so you're metabolizing glucose, fatty acids, all these things, well, if you're eating within that 12-hour clock. But when you go beyond that 12-hour clock, that's when things start to go really wrong because your metabolism enzymes start to shut down and you're not doing things properly. So you're not like insulin responsive. You're not even fatty acids and things like that. Just metabolism in general is not working as well, after 12 hours.
Okay, so this time-restricted eating thing can be a little confusing, a little hard to understand why it's actually working and why it's benefiting people to like eat in a shorter window of time. So this chart might help you to understand it. The way Rhonda Patrick explained it is that she said the first thing you eat, okay, or even xenobiotics, the coffee, the tea, anything that triggers a metabolic process in the body. Okay, when you wake up, that first thing you eat, what it does is it starts to activate all these enzymes and things in your body and activate metabolic processes. So let's say you wake up and 30 minutes later you eat. So what happens is your body starts to create all these enzymes and metabolic processes, okay? But these enzymes, they only are super active for about 12 hours, okay? So after 12 hours, all these enzymes and metabolic processes, they start to slow down, okay? So if you eat beyond that, let's say your metabolic processes slow down, but you're still eating, okay? You're eating all this food. You're still eating, but your metabolic processes have slowed down. Your enzymes are shutting down. You'll just store all that stuff as fat, okay? That's what she's talking about. So you have to stop eating, as your because everything's working on, I guess, a circadian rhythm, okay? So your body is supposed to start shutting down its feeding time. It's just the natural thing. So Yeah, it just makes sense, really. That's why you can't be eating all day, okay? These people who eat like 8 times a day, you know, they're really actually hurting themselves. That's it. Thank you. And thank you, Rhonda Patrick, for this great knowledge and wisdom. You're really helping a lot of people. May you live forever.